All right, take 5. I think this might actually be take 5. Today we are going to do a video talking about Smite 2's first alpha playtest. I will throw up some footage you guys have not seen of me playing some other characters, maybe even occasionally footage of something specifically that's happening that I'm talking about. So we're going to talk about the alpha playtest, talk about the good, talk about the bad, be honest with it. I'm not just going to like straight up be like, this is the best thing ever. I'm not going to dump on it. Just honest take on the alpha playtest. And also if you guys want to leave comments based on things that I say, your own experience playing it or watching it, feel free to as well. I think it's kind of just good to discuss. Smite 2 is on the way. Lots of changes are on the way. Kind of just good to be honest and have like, you know, a little open talk about how it's feeling so far and what's good, what's bad, and how things are. So overall, I actually think the first alpha playtest was really good. I think most of the gods felt playable. I think the servers mostly felt pretty good, especially considering these are Smite servers, people. I actually, maybe this doesn't mean a whole lot. I've played a lot of years of Smite. I have had probably once per year a worse server experience in actual Smite than I did in Smite 2 when it had a similar peak number of players as Smite would get at its largest peak of the month right now. Smite 2 had a lot of players on the alpha playtest. It is very surprising how well those servers performed. That is fantastic. Items felt good. I think just in general, a lot of the bones of the game, the networking, gods, items, map, all these different things felt solid to work with. So you could kind of figure things out from there and mess with the new stuff and not feel too impacted by the bones that are still getting improved upon in order to make everything feel cleaner, smoother, more responsive, all that stuff. You were able to effectively do things and mess with all the new stuff that's getting added, which is great. I think the alpha shows a lot of promise, and I think Hi-Rez has tons of time to continue to work on it and continue to fulfill that promise. I do worry, though, that with Hi-Rez releasing a publicly visible alpha this early on, because we're still looking at 7+ months of development until full release, I'm assuming about 9 months of development, there is tons of time for the game to get better and smoother and all of that. And we're already having comments from people on Reddit, Twitch, YouTube, whatever, people that are looking at this, seeing this, whether they have played Smite 1 or they have not played Smite 1. And some people are looking at this and they're being like, this just looks bad. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of people are not. A lot of people also understand that it's an alpha, so they're not really worried about how it looks. But I've definitely, every single video, there's probably like 5 comments near the bottom of the video where it's like, this looks like shit. Or at least part of it looks like shit. And people just complaining about it, just like, right? Just, And I'm sure a lot of people that do not already follow my channel, because they and I play Smite, a lot of people would look at this from afar and not know much about Smite and be like, right? Like they'll have that same reaction. So I'm a little bit worried. I'm not saying it's bad to release the alpha this early. I do worry a little bit for the success of Smite 2 at release because it'll turn people off in advance from looking clunkier at the moment. And with the way games are at the moment, so often when you release a beta of a game, it is like, this game is 95% done, and we are basically calling it a beta either because it's very temporarily a beta, or more likely we are hiding behind the name of beta in order to be like, oh, it's a bug? Well, it's a beta. Like Tarkov right now, we're like 8 years into Tarkov or some shit. Tarkov is technically a beta. Tarkov has basically been released since I bought it like 5 years ago, right? Probably earlier than that. It's basically been actually released. It's just hiding behind beta. Not going to get into Tarkov drama right now. There's crazy Tarkov drama. But like, there's so many games that hide behind that. And then a lot of people don't realize alpha and beta are very different. You normally just don't see alphas of a game unless you are very into it. It's like, ooh, I know this game is coming a year in advance. I am so excited for this alpha. I'm going to try and get in the alpha playtest. The alpha playtest will not feel anything like full release, but I get to kind of shape the game a little bit early on and help out the devs. So I think a lot of people are getting a misimpression of Smite 2 from this. And while in the end it might be fine, in the end it might also hurt Smite 2's full release numbers, and we'll just have to see. Like, I'm not saying it's bad on Hi-Rez's part to do this. It's just something that I'm considering that might end up being bad long-term in terms of player numbers. I do think in terms of actual game development and game state, of course it's great because you're just getting the Smite community in earlier so that you can help shape decisions that Hi-Rez is making. And then also they can just get tons of data. They can polish bugs faster. They can just get tons of information and kind of feel like, how's the item balance? How is this? How is this? All that sorts of stuff. They can just get more info and make the game better faster. But you do also have all this evidence of like, oh, this is Smite 2, even though it's not actually going to be what Smite 2 looks like. It's going to look so much better by the time it's released, right? So that's something I'm thinking about. Let's go ahead and move on into the straight up good things that I want to talk about that I enjoyed with Smite 2, which definitely outweigh the bad. We'll go ahead and kind of dive through all the things that just feel, if not already just straight up entirely better than Smite 1, like they're just gonna be better than Smite 1 by the time we're getting to full release. So God reworks are very high up there. God reworks so far just feel good. I have not noticed a single thing where I am like, this is bad, this feels worse. The only things that feel worse are like there are some abilities just because of the current state of the game that are less polished, but it's not that the rework of it feels worse, it's that it's less polished. For example, I did bring up in a video Loki not having the cripple on his ultimate. That's something that's going to be coming. So that's not something that's worse. It's just not in yet. And once it's in, it'll still feel, it'll just feel like Loki ult, right? So the standout reworks to talk about, I think, are Ymir, Kukulkan, and Loki. Ymir has a new CC on his wall so that you can knock people in the direction that you're walling them from. So if you put a wall behind them, they'll get knocked towards you. If you put a wall in front of them, they'll get knocked away. You can do the same thing with yourself. You can boost yourself forward by putting the wall behind you. You can boost yourself back by putting the wall in front of you. That's super cool. It also applies Frostbite, which you can use for his passive. So that is great. I think that's just a good change to Ymir. A small thing for Ymir as well. A lot of the gods have small reworks as he can move while he casts his 2 now. That feels good as well. Kukulkan has a crazy rework. We didn't get to see Kukulkan. I had some issues with him, which we'll talk about later in the bad section. But Kukulkan 2, he can now dash out of his tornado and basically functionally get a different ability entirely for his 2, which is super cool. If you put Kukulkan Tornado on the ground and you 2, when you're in the tornado, you can dash out of it and do damage and CC similar to his 1. You can do high base damage, high scaling, and a slow, and basically just turn yourself into a projectile while getting mobility, which is crazy. And then you also, one thing that I think is bad about it is you currently go through gods with it. I think you should impact gods similar to like Amadesh, but I think that's a great change for Kukulkan. I think it's very cool, and it gives him a lot more freedom to mess with his kit in a way that you normally wouldn't with his kit necessarily. Like you can get more aggressive in sort of an Agni Dash way with it, where it's like, okay, I put the 3, tried to land the 3 on you, run into it, and then dash onto you. That's super cool. And then more likely the typical use will probably be, oh, I'm getting dove in a typical Kukulkan fashion by somebody, put the tornado on myself, dash into them, turn and burn, instead of just entirely run away, chuck ult, and just hope I live, right? I think that's cool. Loki invis resets is scary for a lot of people. It gives Loki a ton of potential, a ton of outplay potential, but it's a very good thing for his character because Loki tends to be a god that is overall weak. He is always, well, basically always been garbage and competitive and in high level ranked. And this is something that will on its own not only just fit the character very well, but make him significantly better in order to be better in high level ranked. Because the issue with Loki when you get to those higher levels is even if he is good at one-shotting you, that's kind of it. There's plenty of gods that can one-shot and then can do more after, and Loki typically can't do more very well. Tons of hyper carries like Merc and Nem that can just kind of keep going and do a better job at that point. So now Loki can keep going even better than they can potentially, and he gets a lot of reward for getting those one-shot burst assassin kills, which is great. So that's all really good. I think the reworks look entirely promising. There's a lot of minor ones that are not as exciting as those standout ones that I brought up, but I think every single one that I've looked at has felt good, and it's great that in Smite 2 we are seeing additions or changes to characters in Smite 1 that exclusively feel good so far, so that when you get into Smite 2, it's just this character but better. That is a great sign for the game, right? So active items are maybe my favorite part in the game so far. Active items are very, very fun. I know in a lot of the videos I did not use them very frequently. I get distracted when I record, but active items are super fun. There are plenty of games you guys didn't get to see where I spammed them a lot and spammed a different variety of items. And even to name some of them for some people that don't know, we have each strength and int has like a shield item that has a lot of stats on it, and you can get a shield based on those stats. So based on your strength or int, that's just a kind of simple, fun one, pretty mild. There is an invisibility one. There is a blink one. There is Dagger of Frenzy, which a lot of people are building because it's probably the most OP item in Smite 2 at the moment. It's just do absurd damage for, 6 seconds with your auto attacks. There is like a mushroom that's kind of like super strong meditation for your team where you chuck this down and heal everybody. There is team-wide beads. There's team-wide beads is a little extreme, but like big beads in the area. There's a winged blade. There is a big stasis area that I think affects teammates and enemies. And that's one thing that killed me from a teammate in a video. And I thought was really funny in hindsight. I didn't realize what happened at the time. But my Ymir like put this down in order to help and just ended up basically killing me because he froze me out of position. So it's like if Aegis makes you stand still, he did that and he made me stood still. And I'm like, you motherfucker. I just need to run away. I am not in trouble yet. But now I'm in trouble because I've been frozen still for 2 seconds. There's a lot of crazy actives, and those are really fun. So active items, great sign for Smite 2. where you don't need to build them, but if you do build them, they are fun to work with, they feel rewarding, and you can do all these different crazy things because you're not limited to 2 relics. You can potentially get all these different actives, and it's just up to what do you want to do, does it fit, and yeah, it's kind of just up to your imagination and, you know, also the meta, but there's obviously not a meta yet. So most items in Smite 2 feel like they have more purpose so far than they do in Smite 1, which is really good. Basically, a lot of items are either dedicated stat sticks or very much focused on the thing that they do, whether that is an active effect or a penetration effect, whatever. So for example, I can't really remember the names of them. There are a few items that really have significantly better stats than the other, tend to be a little cheaper as well. I think Sunbeam Bow is one of them. Honestly, it can maybe use a little bit of a buff, where it's like ton of strength, ton of attack speed, pretty affordable. That is it. It is just a stat stick. Right now in Smite 1 for a while, I think especially probably after Season 7, I think as we got into like Seasons 8 and 9, and then just continually started adding a variety of stats to a variety of items, a lot of Smite 1's items are more so what is OP at the moment, and less so what does this item do and why should I build it, which is not good. And a lot of people have come to, like people have agreed with this for so long in Smite 1 that we don't even talk about it that much anymore, because it's like, okay, I guess for some reason they're just not going to fix this. So in Smite 2, they've been fixing it, and that's great, which is that we have items with more of a core purpose of it's like, I want a stupid amount of pen, but if I get a stupid amount of pen, I do not get a lot of damage other than the pen on this item. Or I just want a stat stick. I just want an early game stat stick. Boom, strength, attack speed, I get this stuff. Or I want a strong active effect. Or I can get this cool active effect, but the stats aren't going to be as good as it would be on other items, so I need to make this active effect, make it like be worth its while, right? So you're getting more focused builds, which is great. One thing that there is an issue with, I guess I'll get this out, this is kind of a bad, but it's not that big of a deal, and I'll just get it out of the way now. There are not as many items as there should be at the moment in Smite 2, which is fine because it's early access. You probably don't want to have too many items in your head as devs right now that you're trying to worry about. You just want simple items that you can work with for now. But like right now, if I'm Anubis and I want to go a lifesteal Anubis build, I believe there's literally one item that has intelligence and lifesteal. Literally one. It's good, but it's one. There should be like 3, right? So there's certain stats, certain builds where it's just straight up like, okay, some of these item slots are basically empty at the moment. I just have to figure something out that kind of works. And so we do have some gaps in builds, but that'll eventually, I'm sure they'll add more items in and it'll be normal because there's tons of items in Smite 1 that you would expect to have a similar place in Smite 2 and just aren't quite in yet. So I think that'll happen. At the moment, that is one awkward thing with items. The new map, I think, is really solid for building a game upon, whether it's going to be the actual full release map or not, I don't know. But it's simple, it's reliable, it's easy to understand, even though sometimes some of the videos you guys saw, it seemed like sometimes my teammates still did not understand. Very, very basic map. And I think because of that, it does a great job of introducing new mechanics and still functioning like a normal Smite map. It feels a lot more like a Season 1 type Smite map, where it's more bare bones than what we have nowadays, but it still does the job. And those new mechanics that we're getting to mess with are probably the smallest one is just picking up buffs by choice. Don't really care about this one. I'm actually a little bit against it. Okay, I have dropped the buff, now I must choose to pick up the buff. I'm a little bit against that, just because it feels a little bit awkward to me. I think it feels more smooth and intuitive to just simply scoop up the buff and the buff runs out when it runs out. Now you can have stuff where it's like, okay, you have that greedy teammate that has run around the map, cleared every camp, and just yoinked every single buff in existence, continue to recycle them, clearly just picking them up just because there's a buff to pick up, and it's not even thinking about what he wants to pick up. So that's a little bit of an awkward thing, but I think more importantly, it just feels nicer where it's like, I have dropped the buff, I have run over the buff, I have scooped the buff. To me, it feels a little bit better. But the good things that go along with that is we now are upgrading buffs as we clear camps around the map. That is cool. So that normally in Smite 1, we are getting buffs where it's like, okay, this buff kind of does its thing and mostly continues to do the same thing until late game. And in Smite 2, we're getting these buffs where it's like, okay, early game, it's probably similarly strong as it would be in Smite 1, but then it gets upgraded in the mid game, gets upgraded in the late game as you're doing all these different buffs. And by the time you're in that late game, this buff can still be very strong and very much worth picking up before a fight. You get that with the shields that you get off the small camps. I don't remember what those are called, but they give you a shield, right? Straightforward enough. Red buff can do a lot of dot damage. Blue buff can give you an absurd amount of prot. Late game blue buff, if you get it maxed, can give you 90 of each prot and 20 or 30 cooldown rate, which is insane. It'll probably get nerfed by the time we're getting deeper into playtest. Purple buff can give you 45 strength and int. Speed buff kind of sucks. Speed buff's okay. Speed buff maybe could use some love. I guess that's all the buffs, right? I think. But these buffs, they're capable of upgrading to be very, very powerful. And that feels great because the buffs actually matter more than they do in Smite 1 in the late game. They still matter plenty, which is cool. Portals are a cool concept. I've not gotten to mess with them yet, but I like the idea of trying them. I think likely having so many portals the way we do currently, where it's like, okay, each team has 2 portals. So total we have 4 and they connect each way. I think that might get a little absurd on release, but I think it's cool to just add those in, see what happens. And then if it's getting absurd in the playtest or whatever before we get full release, they can just, they can tone it down. Yeah, so I think that's a cool concept. Ancient Fury and Fire Giant are feeling good. Ancient Fury is a cool concept for a late game Gold Fury where you are disabling objectives for a long amount of time and therefore able to siege them very easily. However, that does not mean you can just team fight the team, because basically what's happening is it's like, oh, towers are turned off, let me go kill the tower. Also, we might just have to 5v5 under this disabled tower. So whether the tower is disabled or not, do you win the 5v5? You might not. And so I think that's a cool concept for an objective where it gives you the ability to siege, but it doesn't just give you the ability to win fights. For the ability to win fights, you're typically going to want Fire Giant. And so it's kind of like these things you can stack together where it's a little bit similar to like Oni plus Fire in Smite, where it's like, do we get Fire Giant plus Ancient Fury, get a crazy win condition, crazy strong siege, or are we just getting one or the other, and which is going to feel more important at the moment? Like, are we kind of already winning fights and we just want Ancient Fury so we can run it down? Do we actually want Fire Giant to help us win this next fight? Fire Giant's very hard to do right now. Fire Giant's very powerful, does tons of damage, which is fun. Makes it so that it's very important that you're careful when you're doing it and you're not just getting it, for one thing, yoinked, but especially not just getting engaged on towards the end of it, because you're going to lose a lot of HP to that Fire Giant. That thing smacks at the moment. So I think we are through the good. I will try and be quick with the bad because I've been trying to, like I said in the beginning of this, is like take 5. I've been trying to make this video shorter, so I will try and sum it up quickly. I've already made it a decent amount shorter than I have with my attempts so far. I was getting towards like 40-minute attempts. So the bad things. I had invisible abilities on Anubis Wrap and Kukulkan 1, and I'm not sure if it is a ping problem or if it is a DX11 problem, because I played on DX11 to avoid crashing. I was consistently crashing on DX12, which is fine. They know that. They have that option there for anybody that is crashing. But yeah, when I was playing those 2 characters, there might have been other characters as well that had similar things where I just didn't play them. Those invisible, or those projectiles, were invisible every single time. If I went into jungle practice, that was not true. If I got hit by those abilities from other people playing them, that was not true. But if I was playing them, I could not see the ability. Naturally, that feels absolutely terrible, and it's something that should get fixed. But again, I'm not sure what's causing it. I'm assuming it is a ping thing. I don't know how many people are playing on DX11 like me to avoid crashing. I have a great computer. I don't know what's causing the crashing. And then I've watched other people, their videos, their streams, whatever, and I don't think I saw anybody else getting invisible abilities, but most people playing Smite are on the East Coast. So it might be a weird latency thing, whereas we get networking fixed, certain abilities just kind of don't function or look right, and they might just, they might be invisible, but that feels terrible. So Hi-Rez should fix that. That's a pretty big thing. Going along with that, there is a weightiness, a clunkiness in Smite 2 that I'm sure will get ironed out over time. I have no clue why it would not. I don't think it'll be very hard. It's just going to take time to polish it all. There's a weightiness in a good way with the abilities like Emir Wall, Bologna ult, stuff like that. But there's also a weightiness with inputs, which is definitely not good. You do not want to be Rock Lee with the weights on. You want the mouse to move when you move it. You want your character to flick with you. You want the autos to feel as fast as possible, where there's like no server delay. And every single person that I have seen play this game, definitely myself included, there is very clearly, they are just nerfed compared to Smite 1, because all the inputs, all the response times, all of that different stuff is just straight up slower at the moment, and it's obvious. Now, if you're newer to the game, if you haven't played the game as long, maybe even if you're playing on console where you can't get as flicky like you can with a mouse, maybe that's less noticeable. For me, it's super noticeable. So I still, don't get me wrong, I still enjoy Smite 2. I was still having a lot of fun with it, but it's very much there. It's something that they're going to need to polish, iron out, and make sure that it's not only as fluid as Smite 1 on release, but more fluid than Smite 1 on release. Assuming that's a thing. Honestly, Smite 1 feels really fluid to me, but it needs to be as good, if not better, in terms of just like how fast everything responds to you, so that it just feels like you're in complete control of your character, right? Right now, it definitely does not. And it feels like every single person I've watched is not making crazy mechanical plays because they can't. they straight up cannot. So that's something that could use some work. And I'm not sure how much of that is like networking and how much of it is just kind of currently like game system stuff that they're still working through. I think probably the biggest thing that we're kind of getting more minor, those are like the big noticeable things. The biggest minor thing that I think is a big deal is potions and wards still need their own slots like they had in Smite 1. For me, this didn't end up being a big issue. I don't really care that much, but it literally needs to happen. It's just gonna feel bad if it doesn't. Is that the biggest thing being, once wards are finally purchasable, they're currently not. I think they already should be. When you can purchase wards, you need to not have to have 5 items in a ward in order to place those wards. You need to have 6 items, 2 consumable slots, just like Smite 1, where you can get those wards down, those potions, whatever, and have them separate from your item build, not mess with your build's hotkeys, just keep it simple. It's not that, like, I think they want to kind of nerf the amount of hotkeys we're dealing with right now. I think they got to come to terms, man. I think they got to come to terms with, if you guys want to add 6 potential active items, we're going to get a little bit MMO-like with some of the hotkeys sometimes. So I think it's very important, just like Smite 1, literally bring over the 2 consumable slots, and then we can still have basically our 2 relic slots, which are now guaranteed beads and guaranteed ward. That is fine. They also introduced a sentry, like basically right now we have like ward shard, where it's 1 minute ward on a 2 minute cooldown. You can upgrade it for 300 gold and get basically sentry shard, which is a 1 minute sentry ward on a 2 minute cooldown. Very, very strong purchase. I think that is totally fine. They can keep that. But they need to add wards in on top, and it needs to be so that potions and wards are just kind of doing their own thing and not interfering with your item build. Because I got somebody in the comments, man. I brought it up in, I think, the chalk video. Somebody had 2 potions and 4 items when we were late game instead of 6 items, and maybe they couldn't afford all 6. And somebody commented, and they're like, I didn't realize I could sell them. I was trying to figure out what to do. I wanted my items. It's like, that is just unnecessary clunk. They should just do away with that. I kind of get the idea with what they're going for there. They should just make consumable slots, straight up. I think maybe the only other thing to even talk about in terms of kind of directly in this playtest is that I don't know if there should be a chat system. I kind of want there to be a chat system. I get why Hi-Rez isn't doing it, because I do think there'll be a whole lot of flaming. The idea of adding a chat system while matchmaking is at its worst, because we're introducing all these people that have developed Smite 1 matchmaking ratings and then giving them just a brand new, we are just creating a new matchmaking rating in Smite 2. There's basically no matchmaking, but people all over from all different skill levels are playing together. So there's going to be an insane amount of flaming. People can't help themselves, right? So I get not adding a chat system. It kind of feels like we still need one. So I think maybe still wait on it. I think at some point soon we should probably get one. But I think the big thing to go with that is that we need player reports. Because for me, matchmaking in Smite 2's playtest, and I'm sure most people will agree with this, if you did not queue customs, the matchmaking was horrendous, not just because of the skill levels. That's okay. That's how it's going to be with the variety of skill levels. But the amount of rage quits. I don't know if it's new players. I don't know if it's just people with just baby mentals. I don't know if they're like players from different game modes that are now like, oh God, conquest, plus I don't know what I'm doing, plus I'm mad because I died one time. I don't know what it is. I am not kidding with this number. 70+% of my games in matchmaking in Smite 2's playtest had a rage quit within 10 minutes. That player did not come back. Very often there were 2. That is an unbelievable amount of tanking the fun and taking just kind of the general feel of the Smite 2 playtest and learning the game. That is crazy. We need player reports, and these players need to get absolutely fucked if they do it more than one time. It's, you know, sometimes you can't tell. Maybe for some reason they had to go. Maybe something really happened. They had to DC, whatever. Obviously, the 70+% means there's tons of people just kind of bitching out and rage quitting. They need to be super punished to the point where if this is happening and you can clearly establish they're rage quitting, like it's happened 2 times or some shit, ban them from the playtest. Maybe if it's 3, ban them from the next playtest as well. Stuff like that. Just be like, no, you can't do this. You can't screw these games over this hard. We need serious punishments. It's kind of crazy that like there's a deserter penalty of 30 minutes for not selecting a god or whatever in 30-second-ish queues, where it's like, this has barely impacted me. Oh no, I have to go to a new queue that'll pop almost immediately. We need insane punishments for people that are now creating a 4v5 and either making us F6 a 10+ minute game, or sometimes, especially with the amount of new players, you get the F7 warriors, man. We will have a 40-minute 4v5, and it's just like, brother, we can get a brand new 5v5 in 1 minute if you have 6 right now. They don't do it. It's crazy how much that tanks the experience, And for me, it's the reason we didn't get more videos. I wanted the true matchmaking experience because it's what the majority of people get. I have content creator privilege. I can get customs together for Smite 2, no problem. I wanted the true matchmaking experience. I should have given up on it and made customs so that we could get more videos. I don't really care about playing with and against a bunch of new players. Like that is fine. Sometimes it's a little absurd. Sometimes it definitely would have felt to have customs just for that at the very least. But like the thing that really killed my drive was having, at some point, I'm pretty sure I had 5 straight games where we F6'd within about 15 minutes because either, like, you know, 1+ people on either team DC'd and did not come back. And it was not like to start the game type DC. It was obviously like they died once or twice, they were over it, they left type stuff. So that is insane. It cannot be allowed to continue in any other playtest. They need to make changes. In the next playtest, I am expecting probably 1 day of matchmaking. We'll see how it goes. And then assuming it is remotely still having the rage quit issues, then we'll probably do any other days, depending on how many there are in the playtest. We'll probably just be straight up custom games. And speaking of which, if you guys, you know, if you're this deep in the video and you're hearing this, look forward to potentially, if you want to, get in the Mastcom Discord and look forward to trying to get in some custom games for the next playtest, because I am planning on doing a bunch of those. So I think that might do it. There's one tiny thing that I just kind of forgot to talk about. It's in the back of my head because I was going to talk about it and I got distracted with the chat stuff. Is there a few VGSs that are missing? They should just add the VGSs. You can also currently like backpedal when you get like a VSD type VGS command. If you type like with a movement key, it moves you. That's just part of the VGS. Don't let it do that. Add the missing VGSs. Basically it. Not really a big deal. I think that really kind of does it for everything that I can think of. Honestly, I got a little distracted with the matchmaking. I was going to talk about it at the very end and then kind of, it's like, wait, there's one more little thing. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm really looking forward to Smite 2. I think it looks very promising. It's still very bare. No, there is a big thing. There is a huge thing. Guys, put a ward skin in. My God, I don't think I talked about it in this. Like I said, there's been a bunch of takes, so I'm forgetting some of these things. Put a ward skin in, man. It is crazy. Like, I get it's early access. A lot of the card art is not really very clean card art. It's just kind of like, this is the god. They look like this. That's fine. The item art is just recolored Smite 1 item art. That is fine. It's just placeholder. Like, all that stuff is okay. The art does not need to be perfectly beautiful on the map or the characters or anything. You guys are going to keep working on it. My God, it cannot be that hard to just make a ward skin similar to how wards look in Smite 1 and put it in Smite 2, and I guess make one for sentries as well, instead of having a green dot that you see on the map. It is so ugly, man. It is so dirt. It is so unnecessarily scuffed. I feel like one person should be able to make this in like a couple hours, right? I feel like it can't be that much work. I feel like this one thing makes it look like we are looking at 0.3 version of Smite instead of like 0.7 version of Smite. Maybe I overthink it. To me, it's like so many of the effects are a little bit scuffed, but still basically like you're seeing what's happening. I don't know why wards are a green dot that you look at. My God, man, give him a skin. Anyways, I think that actually is everything. So yeah, I am very much looking forward to the release of Smite 2. I'm looking very much forward to the next playtest of Smite 2. For anybody out of the loop, I believe the next playtest is going to be in about a month from now. It sounds like, I don't know if Hi-Rez is like super, I don't know, the word I want to hear is, I don't know if Hi-Rez has decided too much exactly how they're going to do this, but it seems like they're going to do a playtest once per month at the moment. Sometime probably within a few months, they will either be more often or 24/7. I'm guessing the way it'll go is that for like 2+ months, it'll be once a month playtest for 2 or 3 days. And then after that, it'll probably be like either bi-weekly, moving to weekly, or just straight up weekly playtests. And then after that, we'll get 24/7 playtests for a few months before we're getting into actual full release Smite 2, is my guess. So looking forward to all of that. I think there are a lot of good things in place getting worked on. I think there's a lot of promise. I think the devs are clearly showing a lot of creativity, a lot of willingness to try and improve on the old. I think all of that is great. And I think pretty much all the bad stuff, which there's not a ton of, but I think all the stuff that doesn't feel great, I think is just gonna get better. The only thing that honestly worries me much, because I don't know if it's something they just haven't decided to add yet, or if they're really like, no, we're gonna commit to something dumb, is the consumable slots. I don't know their take on that. So I think there should be that for sure, and I'm not sure whether they're planning to add it or not. But everything else I just think is going to continue to get better, and we're just eventually going to have a flashier, cleaner, more exciting version of Smite that we all get to play. And for everybody like upset about the skin stuff, there's the Legacy Gem crossover. So I feel like, honestly, all the bases are covered and it's just going to be a good game. And I'm still already having fun with it, just a player messing with new things in this new early access of the old game, right? This new take on it. But thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you all enjoyed the video, and I will see you all in the next one.
I've been seeking for the glory. Say my name. And I've been trying to write my own story in the search for fame. I'm sitting here in this empty room. Walls keep tumbling down.